2, 1.
Welcome to Meet the Winners for Canada-wide Science Fair 2022. I'm Reni Barlow. I'm the Executive Director of Youth Science Canada. And this week's virtual Canada-wide Science Fair 2022 brought together 371 finalists with 324 projects from across Canada. And after 1,470 judging interviews by over 200 judges, yesterday's award ceremony concluded by announcing the grand award winners, the top junior, intermediate, and senior projects in both discovery and innovation for 2022. Joining us here on the panel are the grand award recipients. These 7 students have been honored as Canada's top young scientists, engineers, and innovators for 2022. We'll have the opportunity to speak with them about the path that brought them here, what inspires them, and of course the outstanding STEM work that they have done. And we'll start with junior and our Platinum Awards. So our first Platinum Award winner for the Best Junior Discovery Project is from Toronto, Ontario. Audrey Cowan's project is titled The Hidden Side of Your Dog's Love. Congratulations, Audrey. Your project focused on something that all dog owners have probably wondered about at one time or another. Give us a quick overview of the question you were trying to answer and what you found.
Of course. So I, as well as many other people, knew that dogs' licks could carry dangers. But what I wanted to know was what those were. So the question that I was trying to answer was, what microbes can make dogs ill, and can those bacteria and fungi specifically be transferred to humans and harmfully impact them through such a normalized experience as licking? I found that there were quite a few harmless microbes, but there also were some that can cause serious disease.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And our second Platinum Award winner for the Best Intermediate Innovation Project is from Calgary, Alberta. Max Dew developed a novel pre-hospital indoor rescue drone. So congratulations, Max. Now this is a pretty incredible idea. Tell us what you were trying to do and what you developed.
Yeah, sure. So the challenge that I wanted to solve was to help more cardiac arrest patients at home. And for people undergoing cardiac arrest at home right now, it basically means your heart stops beating suddenly. They may die within 10 minutes, and the survival rate is only around 10%. And if they're home alone, unwitnessed, then their survival rate is close to 4%. So this 10% low survival rate has been low for the past 30 years. And my solution to this problem was to create a drone that was intelligent, that can, 1, start rescue faster before an EMS arrives, and 2, to help save more patients home alone as well. So to do this, I made 4 design features, which included locating and approaching patients in seconds, which upstairs or downstairs, then delivering emergency medication to patients under surveillance with a pill box and an intramuscular auto-injection, and enabling surveillance connection with an EMS team, and opening room doors to approach patients with an extendable arm.
Thanks, Max. I had a chance to watch your video, and it looks like a pretty awesome and incredible invention. I love the ability to inject patients and to open doors. That's amazing. Our next Platinum Award winner for the Best Intermediate Discovery Project is from Waterloo, Wellington, Ontario. Jasmine Schneider's project is phosphate removal from groundwater using mussel shell biochar. Congratulations. Excess phosphate is a significant issue for lakes and rivers. Tell us what you found.
Yeah, so my project was all about combating eutrophication by removing phosphate from water. And I tried to do this specifically with a material called biochar that's basically produced by taking organic matter, any various types, and putting it through a process of heating with limited oxygen. And so I produced a lot of biochars from locally accessible feedstocks. And when I tried to test them and see how well they could remove phosphate, I actually realized that there was a lot of additional phosphate leaching coming off of these biochars. And so at that point, I came to the conclusion that I would have to modify my biochars with mussel shell to try and get that additional phosphate leaching to a minimum. So that's exactly what I did. And I ended up with being able to reduce that phosphate leaching by 80%, which is a pretty significant and promising amount.
That's great. We'll come back to the whole idea of eutrophication in a bit, but with another project. But our final Platinum Award winners actually for the Best Senior Innovation Project are Coral Kolechala and Hans Wu from York Region in Ontario. Their project titled Foresight, Analysis of Cancerous Genetic Profiles with Artificial Neural Networks, combined artificial intelligence and gene sequencing to improve cancer diagnosis. Congratulations. So tell us a bit more about the problem you were trying to solve and how you combined those two technologies.
So for our project, we pursued an innovative method of early cancer screening to detect genetic signs of cancer, and we decided to analyze genetic testing data to do so. And we compiled together a massive data set of 17,000 sample tests from online to meet the test.
And with this data, we built an AI to classify the type of cancer present within these genes. And we also use statistical methods to find the genes which may indicate a higher likelihood of cancer. And our final program was 95% accurate in determining the type of cancer that was present.
Which is pretty impressive. Congratulations on that work. So now we'll move on to the two Best Project Award winners. The Best Project Award for Discovery went to Annabelle Rayson from Lambton County, Ontario for Plankton Wars, an innovative analysis of Daphnia genotype biomanipulation for algae bloom prevention. Congratulations. Jasmine started a bit of a theme around the issue of excess algae in lakes and rivers. Tell us about how your work with Daphnia, which are commonly known as water fleas, could help this situation.
Absolutely. So for my project, I chose to look at a way to treat and prevent harmful algae blooms that was cost effective, that used a native and natural solution, and that also limited the use of dangerous chemicals and algicides. And the issue with harmful algae blooms is once they form through the process of eutrophication, when they eventually die and decompose, the algae absorb excessive amounts of oxygen, which removes all of the oxygen from the water and causes all of the fish and other aquatic organisms to die. So I essentially chose to study the species of Daphnia, the specific Daphnia species of Daphnia magna, because it's a filter feeder, so it can eat up all of the algae. So I'm proposing that we can biomanipulate it in freshwater ecosystems. And I studied the species at the genotypic level. I compared different genotypes to decide which one would be best for biomanipulation based on a variety of different health metrics, and of course, its ability to decrease the harmful algae blooms. And then because we know that our Great Lakes and freshwater environments are very dynamic and have a variety of different environmental conditions, I looked at the ability of the Daphnia magna to treat and prevent harmful algae blooms when exposed to nutrient pollution, calcium carbonate, naturally occurring aquatic microbes, and microplastics. I then ran statistical analysis on all of my results and found that the majority of results had statistical significance. And in conclusion, I discovered that genotype 4 is the ideal genotype of Daphnia magna to biomanipulate to treat and prevent harmful algae blooms, can effectively do this in nutrient and plastic polluted environments, and can have its health and overall success improved through the presence of naturally occurring aquatic microbes and the addition of calcium carbonate.
Perfect. So maybe you and Jasmine, combine your Daphnia treatment and biochar and mussel shells, and we'll have no more eutrophication in our lakes and rivers. That'd be awesome. And finally, the Best Project Award for Innovation went to Arushi Nath from Toronto, Ontario, for strengthening planetary defense, detecting unknown asteroids using open data, math, and Python. Now this year, as part of the 60th anniversary celebration, we've been highlighting the event's history. And I want to point out that you've made a bit of history yourself. You are just the third junior to win a Best Project Award and the first since 2003. So congratulations, Arushi. Tell us about what you did and whether we should be afraid.
Sure. So planet defense is a global issue, as asteroids can be hitting the Earth at any time. And lots of these asteroid impacts are unexpected. So my project goal is to find unknown asteroids using middle mathematical scales, open data, and programming. So how I did this is I took images from robotic telescopes located around the world, and I used coding languages and star and asteroid catalogs to eliminate all known objects in my image. And after that, all the remaining objects were classified as unknown objects, and I submitted them to the Minor Planet Center. And in conclusion, 3 of my observations were selected as preliminary asteroids, showing that my algorithm was effective in detecting unknown objects.
Excellent. So should we be afraid of an asteroid hitting the Earth anytime soon?
I think asteroid impacts are even unexpected asteroid impacts are are very possible. Like even earlier this year, in March, there was an unexpected impact where a 4-meter asteroid impacted the Earth in the ocean. But this shows that unknown asteroids still can impact the Earth. So yes, there still is. We should be afraid of these impacts, and we should try to strengthen planet defense so that there's no more unexpected impacts that happen to the Earth.
Excellent. All right. Well, it's good to know that your software and your project is maybe helping keep us safe. That's great. I want to take you back a little bit to the award ceremony last night, and I know that there were some some emotional moments for some people as the awards were announced. It's a big deal being named one of Canada's top young scientists for the year. Annabelle, you had a bit of a moment with your family. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, so we were all kind of gathered around in our living room, and it was very, very exciting. I remember I was nervous the entire night. I actually did not eat dinner. And as we were near the end of the ceremony and kind of my name came up for Best Project in Discovery and the confetti went off, it took a few seconds for me to actually process everything. And I remember my mom was taking photos of the screen, and I had to ask her to show me the photo. I was like, did that actually happen? Do we have the photographic evidence? It wasn't a figment of my imagination. And then it was pretty much my mom, dad, and I were just kind of sitting, hugging on the floor. I was probably crying for a solid 10 minutes. It still is unbelievable.
Thanks very much. And Hans, you had a bit of a situation during the award ceremony. You actually didn't get to see it. Tell us a little bit about what happened and how Corral helped you with that.
Yeah, of course. So actually, I have a job. I'm a soccer coach, and I was working from 6 to 8, which was exactly the time of the award ceremony. And I decided I'm not going to ditch my 5-year-old students. I'm going to go and still continue the lesson with them. And so I had Coral in my earbud. I had an earbud there, and I was on a call with him. And he was kind of like my sideline reporter. It felt like the NBA playoffs in some way. And so each time an award came up, he'd announce it to me. And once we got to the final one, I was really, really excited. But we were right in the middle of a very intense game. It was like 3-3, and it was the last 5 minutes. And I couldn't react. It was like inside of me. And I was really excited, but it was a really fun experience.
Oh, that's awesome. So always good to have somebody as a team member to help you out with that. So that's really, really good. So it kind of brings up the idea of that doing STEM projects isn't all you guys do. So we've heard that Hans is a soccer coach. What other kinds of things are you involved in outside of doing your STEM project? Audrey, what kinds of things are you doing?
So I love to do a lot of things such as cook, bake, garden, and of course be involved with animals and be able to play with them because I also have a dog, so I spend a lot of time with her.
That's great. And Jasmine, what about you?
Yeah, so I have a couple different hobbies. I love to be a part of my school community, so I love to participate in like debate and science council, and then I also tutor as well for a job to make money and do ballet on the side.
Okay, and Corral?
Even though I'm not too good, I like competitive programming and a little bit of cybersecurity as well. I've been getting into cybersecurity recently, but again, I'm not too good at it, but it's fun.
Maybe not yet, but it's, the more you work at it, the better you get. And Annabelle, what about you?
Well, I play 4 different instruments: violin, viola, ukulele, and alto saxophone. So I perform in concert bands at my school. I am the founder and co-founder, co-president of the Social Justice Club at my school, and I'm also the co-chair of our food drive committees at my school as well. I'm the chair of a nonprofit charity in my community that provides holiday gifts to women impacted by homelessness and domestic abuse. And I'm also a competitive curler, member of my school curling team, and volunteer youth curling coach.
That's it? Oh, that's awesome.
I think so.
That's awesome. No, it's great that you're so involved in your community and doing so much. And Arushi, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm really interested in sports. Some of my favorites are, for example, rock climbing and water polo, and biking as well, actually. And I also play the piano. So yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So a lot more to you guys than just working on your STEM projects. Let's take you back a little bit to the time when you were getting started on your project, and I'm interested in what got you motivated to do your project in the first place. Because all of you have a bit of a, I think a bit of a story behind where your project came from and what inspired you to begin thinking about it. So maybe we'll start with the water and eutrophication situation. So Jasmine, what got you looking at this problem in the first place?
Yeah, so I've always been interested in plants and then protists. So I kind of was interested in like plant-like protists, I guess, in terms of algae. And I thought it was just so interesting how something so small and how something so small and innocuous could have such a big impact on our aquatic ecosystems. And so last year I did a project on eutrophication as well, but more so looking at what fertilizers have the biggest impact. And this year I wanted to actually find a way to combat eutrophication and like prevent its effects. And I was doing a little bit of research and I found a professor nearby who does some amazing work on biochar. And I thought it would be really interesting to reach out to her and see if I could work with biochars as well.
Okay, and Annabelle, you kind of picked up on the same theme. So what was your inspiration?
Absolutely. So I come from Sarnia Lambton, a small little community in Ontario, and I'm essentially surrounded by the Great Lakes. In fact, my father's actually a commercial fisherman, and my mom was a biology teacher at a college and high school. And so I've always had a love for our environment and freshwater ecosystems and water. And essentially last year, what I decided to do was I performed a study comparing 4 different species of freshwater zooplankton to discover which species was ideal to biomanipulate to prevent harmful algae blooms, as I believe that freshwater is vital for life and we need to do everything we can to care and protect it. And from there, I learned that Daphnia magna was the ideal species for this. And with that project, I had actually worked with my local conservation authority. And through them, they have this connection with these professors, local professors who were actually studying the Daphnia magna from an evolutionary perspective, and they provided me with the different genotypes so I could continue my research.
Okay, that's great. Max, what got you going on the idea of somehow creating a drone to address heart attack victims?
Yeah, so mine was basically from first I would like drones, like the device is really like it has unlimited possibilities and advancement for and development in the future. And I kind of had experience with it since last year. I designed a delivery drone for a competition and realized that drones can be implemented and applied to so many aspects of our own lives. And they can do things that humans on the ground cannot do, and robots that are designed to have locomotion on the ground cannot do. So when I got a drone for a Christmas present and I couldn't go outside to fly it because of cold weather and COVID, I flew it around the house, and that really inspired me because I thought why not make a drone flying robot or an indoor helper? So then I did some research into heart failures and cardiac arrests, and the 30-year-old low survival rate and limited solutions really motivated me to start innovating this drone.
Excellent. Oh, that's great. And Coral and Hans, what got you focused on trying to get at cancer?
Well, our project actually started. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, our project actually started with me participating in one of the essay contests in the United States. So this was the American Society of Human Genomics, and I had to write an essay about genetic tests. And I found microarrays really interesting. I saw these 3 bright colors on the genetic test, and I was thinking, because Coral had done a similar AI project last year, I was thinking maybe the AI could look at these images and try to recognize some patterns in that. So Coral?
Yep, and having recognized these patterns, I thought it would be a good idea to apply machine learning to this field.
No, that's great. We're seeing a lot of projects now that are applying AI and machine learning to various image sets. And how difficult was it to do that? In terms of acquiring the images and then doing that analysis.
I think personally for me, the most difficult part was obtaining the data itself, because this requires hundreds and thousands of genetics data from human samples, and that's not really easy to get. So we had to go to the gene expression omnibus and create our own large data set. And there were some other parts as well, but I would say that was the most difficult part of our entire project.
Okay. And Arushi, have you been spending and getting nightmares about meteors hitting the Earth, or was this just coming out of your interest in math and coding?
Well, actually, I think I've really been interested in science and astronomy for a long time. Like, since I was very young, I remember going to the Ontario Science Fair on the weekends and just looking at all the exhibits they had. And that's actually where I found out about the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada's monthly meetings. And I attended a few. Then I actually started making my own small astronomy projects and presenting them there. And this got me really interested in astronomy. And I even joined and got a membership there and went and observed through their telescope and, like, for example, drew things of my observations. And I thought the best way to learn about a subject is to actually continue making projects about it so I can explore every aspect of the subject. So that's why I wanted to make an astronomy project, and I thought about asteroids because I was really curious of them.
Now, you said this was when you were very young. So when did you actually get started?
Well, I think my interest in science and technology and astronomy started when I was around 5 or 6.
Wow.
Like, my parents used to take me to some exhibitions, and then I got really interested, wanted to see more, and just continued after that.
Oh, that's great. So, Jasmine, how about you? What sparked your interest?
Yeah, so I had a really great middle school teacher who her primary subjects were science and math, and she really encouraged her entire class to enter into a regional fair, which was a huge privilege because that was a special thing. I now recognize that she got her entire class to enter, and she helped guide all of us through this process. And going to that first Waterloo Wellington Fair, I saw so many incredible projects, and I kind of knew that I wanted to be one of those people one day and be a senior doing a project. So yeah, I'm still working towards having projects every year, but I love the process of it, and I love getting to have that satisfying end product and getting to continue that product as well.
So you were actually inspired by going to visit the regional fair.
Yeah, it was a big part of why I still continue to do projects.
Oh, that's awesome. And hopefully, with any luck, next year we'll be able to actually go and have physical regional fairs again that people can go and visit, as well as the online virtual fairs. I want to think a little bit about what kind of gets you started on these projects and how you move forward with them. What kinds of things would you suggest young people who are considering getting started on a project think about when they're getting started? Quite a few of you have several years of experience at doing this kind of thing, but maybe think back to when you were first getting started. What advice would you give to somebody who was getting started on this? And perhaps we'll start with maybe Corral and Hans.
All right. So for me personally, if you're interested in a field or in a general subject area, that's probably what you want your project to be about. So if you have a passion in something and really want to use it in your life, then it could be really useful to get started on a project. Also, this doesn't have to be a school subject. It can be outside of school. So for example, for us, machine learning was self-taught. So all of that, it's important to pursue your passions.
I think I could actually add on a little bit more. Probably the thing that kept me the most motivated throughout the whole thing was YouTube. And I think it's so important now that the internet is so widely available. There's so many science videos, there's so many science speakers online. I think Arushi can probably relate with this, her astronomy project. I'm a big fan of Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was the one that got me really, really interested in everything science related. And the passion that I had for science is what kept me going through the 3 a.m. Morning work sessions on the project. And that's what got us both to where we are today.
That's great. Yeah, I think people sometimes forget that these projects are a lot of work, and they sometimes take an enormous amount of time, as you say, especially working outside of school and late into the evenings. Audrey, how about you? What advice would you have for students who are just getting started?
So similar to what the other finalists have said, I would suggest that you choose something that you're very passionate about. because it's a lot of effort, time, and work that's put into these projects. So you want something that you care about. For example, with my dog, I was really interested in finding out what sort of microbes she was carrying and if that could negatively impact her human relations. So when I found out my results, that was incredibly interesting to me, and it was absolutely worth all the time and effort put in. And often, if you do a project that you're really passionate about, it will impress people more than picking something to impress people.
And Annabelle, what about you? What advice would you give?
Absolutely. I definitely make sure you pick something that you're passionate about and genuinely curious. Because with science fair, the trick generally is you want to research and read as much as possible. I don't think you can possibly over-research a topic, as you want to learn about it from every different possible perspective. So my definite suggestion is make sure to spend the majority of my time when I design my projects is I usually spend at least 3 to 4 months researching and trying to learn as much as I can from a variety of different perspectives. And then the other thing is, don't be afraid to reach out to an expert for help. They were once just like you, a curious young scientist trying to learn as much as they can. And the scientific community is so welcoming and supportive. So I guess my tips are make sure to research and don't be afraid to reach out for help or advice or guidance or mentorship, because it is incredibly valuable.
And Max, what would you suggest?
Yeah, so just like the other finalists said, like I encourage other students to start like an innovation project or a science fair project and to use your passions and skills to like better the local community, because it's just really meaningful. And when you're like choosing a topic on this, like you have to be passionate about that topic and your project. Like it's critical that you have to dig deeper into that topic, because like you often have to find the root of the problem, solve it. And you even have to research like topics related to that topic or different topics related to the topic that you originally chose. And I also think that like in science and innovation, you have to be really resilient, because like even if your prototype or your experiment fails, you have to persevere and keep on going. So innovation is basically about finding and fixing these issues until it works. And when you start doing that and you start getting your positive results, it becomes really fun. Another important point that I want to say is like, as Annabelle said, outreach is very important. Like, do not be afraid to ask for help, because when you get a response, the knowledge and insight is really incredible.
That's great. And Rushi, what about you? What's your advice?
Yeah, my advice is just to start something. Like, it doesn't need to be a big project. It just needs to be a small project, for example, to start with, that merges your interest with maybe solving a real world problem. And as Hans said, for example, watching YouTube videos when you're stuck is a really great example. And also looking at online forums related to your subject also helps. Like personally, in my opinion, like during my project, I had to look at many online forums to find some answers and watch YouTube videos. So just get started and everything will come along after.
That's great. Yeah. Max, you talked a little bit about times when things go wrong and problems come up and you need to work through the challenges. What were some things that maybe happened to you in the development of your drone that maybe were really challenging, when things went really badly wrong, or maybe even some funny things that went wrong? Anything happen like that for you?
Yeah, so actually a lot of things happened to me like that. So like in my preliminary designs, I had like a lot of different designs. Like I think I had 4 arms, 3 grippers, but like after like functionality comparison and low fidelity testing, I found like a lot of the arm systems were like too heavy to fly, or they're ineffective at raising that like arm. And it was really frustrating for me, because like at that point, I was thinking about this problem for days on end, and I was like stuck and I was out of ideas. So I thought that I might have to give up this like opening door feature. But like the more you think about the problem that is at hand for you, like on one day I just thought of like another idea and I tried it out. Like the idea was having the drone cap a hand on top of the doorknob and then lower itself down. Like that idea ended up working. So like you really have to persevere and keep thinking about the specific problem that you're having. And that's really what's like important, even if you encounter failures.
That's great. And Annabelle, you had some fun with the Daphnia, I understand. Well, they were a little elusive, and you had some challenges there. Tell us a little bit about that.
I did. So specifically for my project, I was performing it over several months. So one thing was I had to make sure that I was constantly culturing and growing, and the process is called cloning the Daphnia myself. And with my project as well, to follow proper toxicity testing guidelines for Daphnia magna and to ensure the most accurate results, I used the neonates at the start of every experiment. And so the neonates are Daphnia that are less than 24 hours old, and they're teeny tiny little microscopic things. And so trying to pick them up with a pipette and ensure that you have precisely 4 in your pipette and getting them into the test tube is incredibly difficult, especially the Daphnia are called the water flea because they like to hop and dance about in the water. So they were a little difficult to keep up with.
Okay, so no messes or anything in the kitchen? Because I think did you do your experiments in the kitchen?
Yes, my basement and kitchen, and I will say I was 100% playing with toxic microcystis in the kitchen on Canadian Thanksgiving. No one got sick or anything. There were spills, but I had to be very on top of it to prevent giving my entire family microcystis poisoning in the apple pie.
Yeah, that would be bad. Yes, indeed. So, so Jasmine, how about you? Any sort of interesting events or failures or things that you needed to overcome?
Yeah, so initially I actually planned to make my biochars and pyrolyze them in a muffle furnace at a lab. The muffle furnace was really small, so it was a little bit inefficient, but it came with like a little clay container to put the biochar in. And so I had done previous experiments and they had all gone well with the muffle furnace. But I think the third time I did it, it started mysteriously smoking, which it's not supposed to because it's a limited oxygen environment. So hopefully there isn't any combustion happening. But it's in a university building that's connected to the math building. And so it was really important that the smoke alarms didn't go off because I didn't want to have to evacuate an entire building when it was raining as well. So it was just, we had to get really creative. There wasn't any fire, which was nice. We weren't entirely sure why it was smoking, but people got out folders and we started fanning the smoke away from the ceiling. There was like a turkey pot, like what you would bake a turkey in. They just had it in the lab for a reason. So we filled that up with water and we had to like dunk everything in it to make sure it stopped smoking. So yeah, it was a bit of a interesting process. And I decided to move to the barbecue after that because seemed a little less, it was a scary prospect to use the muffle furnace again.
Okay, yeah. So there's always a story, you know, behind every project. There's a story of something that's that's gone wrong or went strange. How about Coral and Hans? How about your project? Any issues in the development? Things that didn't quite work out the way you planned in the first place?
Well, our project was mostly digital, so we didn't have too many problems. But one time we did run this chunk of code and it gave a syntax error. It was quite insane. But Louis can also add on.
Yeah, one little thing that we came across in our project. This wasn't too relevant to the success of our project, but we really wanted to make a visual of the genes that we analyzed. And in gene expression analysis, it's supposed to make a graph that looks like this, and opening up, it's supposed to look like a volcano. And every time we ran our code to try to develop the graph, it would look this way, upside down. So we kept trying to figure out what happened. We spent like 8 hours looking through the code. And it turns out all we did wrong was we had the y-axis the other way around. So I flipped the graph. That's the only reason it had the weird shape.
Okay, all right. Yeah, 8 hours though to figure that out. It's amazing how something like that can eat up your time. Arushi, any things that happened? You had a coding project as well. So what kinds of issues did you run into?
I faced many technical issues, though one of the most interesting ones was when I was overlaying known objects onto my image to eliminate them. I saw that the known objects were not matching on my image at all. So I spent several days, even I think a week, trying to solve this issue. And I actually found out that the problem was really simple. It's that since the right ascension or declination coordinates, so where my image was based on the center of my image could have been rotated or flipped. So in this case, there was just a rotation of 180 degrees. And after I rotated my image, the unknown objects were matching perfectly on my image. So this way, I was able to customize my code to work with these errors.
That's a little bit like an upside down y-axis.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys share a similar problem. That's great. Jasmine, how about you? Or sorry, I guess Annabelle.
I do.
Sorry, Audrey. Audrey is actually who I meant. Sorry.
Yeah, so one very difficult issue I ran into was when I was performing gel electrophoresis. So once I had completed it, when I was going to image my gels, it turned out that I only had 1 out of 22 successful bands, which was very disappointing considering that the whole process took about 6 hours. So I had to end up redoing my PCR, redoing the preparation of the PCR, making new gels, and rerunning new gels. So that definitely was quite a hiccup.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when you look back on the work that you've done on your projects, what would you say are the most important skills or attributes maybe that you've learned or needed to develop as part of the work? There have been a number of things that have been mentioned, but I'm curious what what you think you've learned primarily from the work on your project, and perhaps Audrey, we'll start with you.
Sure. So 2 examples are perseverance and time management, because I spent a lot of time in a lab and I had to do a lot of experiments, and often they would sometimes run overtime, or as I just mentioned, I would run into issues. And then when I was also at home and I was working on my project board and project report, I tended to be spending so much time on it that I didn't have enough time for schoolwork. So I definitely had to learn how to manage my time better. And in terms of perseverance, whenever something went wrong in the lab, it would be quite disappointing because it would take hours to successfully redo. So I definitely learned time management and perseverance skills.
Okay. And Max, how about you? What do you think you learned most about as a process of doing your project?
Yeah, so I learned a lot about myself. So I learned that you can come up with ingenious ideas by thinking outside the box. Like doing this project and learning and researching about different topics and figuring out how to solve issues that my innovation had, it allowed my mind to just go outside the box and allowed me to think of solutions that were both creative and that worked. I also learned that to persevere and to keep going, because when you continually repeat something, for me, it was rebuilding and reiterating new prototypes. I realized that refining these and exploring, you can create something that you would never have dreamed of. Also another huge part that I learned was the importance of time management, being efficient just with some fractions of time. So reviewing some of my CAD designs, adding supports in 10 to 20 minutes in the early mornings before I send them off to a fabrication factory to print before I head to school. Even if you're putting in the small amounts of time, you can accomplish many things.
That's great. And Jasmine, how about you?
I think one of the biggest things that I learned over the course of my project is the importance of communication, especially in science. I getting into a lab environment and working with a professor, first of all, reaching out to a professor and cold emailing someone that you don't know and asking for access to their lab. It was a scary thing to do. And it was something that I had put off for a really long time, previous years. But I think just self-advocating for yourself and don't be afraid to ask people for things, because a lot of the time, sometimes they want to help you. And if you don't ask, you're never going to know. And then just keeping that communication going throughout the entire project. I got really good at sending good emails to different people, reaching out for their help, and just that communication was really, really important. And then also precision and just focus in a lab, especially in a lab environment. You have to make sure that you dilute things correctly. You have to make sure you're aware of your surroundings and safety and all of that. And I had never been in an environment like that before. So just being there and knowing oh, you have to be so careful about these waste products and this can't mix with this. All of those things are kind of new to me, but I think it was a really valuable skill to just have that focus where you are.
And Coral and Hans, how about you guys? What did you guys learn through the process?
Well, for me, I think communication and also patience was really important since our project was mainly biology and technology, and I had to listen to Lewis and try to figure out how the biology part of the project works and implement the code for it. So it was very important for us to communicate properly and be there on time to actually work on parts of the project.
Yeah, and as the great Richard Feynman once said, if you can't explain a concept to a 5-year-old, you don't really understand it. I'm not saying Coral was a 5-year-old, but he definitely didn't know as much biology as me. So really trying to simplify my ideas and trying to communicate it to him so that he would have a good grasp of what he was actually coding, what the end goal was, that was very important for us.
It's really interesting that, when you worked as a team, you very clearly delineated the tasks. One of you took the biology side, one of you very much took the coding side, and quite often in pair projects we see, kind of more of a combined effort. Do you think there was an advantage to splitting those tasks?
Well, actually, it wasn't fully split. So Lewis had to learn a little bit of coding, and I had to learn more of the biology. And but other than that, I don't think there's a specific benefit for it, because it's better if both sides of the project or both people know everything about the project. But I think for us it worked well.
That's great. That's great. And Annabelle, what about you?
Absolutely. Well, not a single science fair season goes by without learning a new skill or ability. I definitely find with this project, I've really refined and improved my analytical and observation skills. I had to get really good at observing the daphnia when I was culturing them to know when most neonates would be reproduced. I had to get good. I became a microscope master, and with my hemocytometer, manually hand counting all of the algae cells. So I did learn a lot of patience there as well. I also learned how to perform statistical analysis, and I'm not the most techie person, so it was I did learn a little bit of coding as well. In order to perform that. And additionally, with my project, I chose to measure the body lengths of the daphnia. Now, since they're so small, I actually had to learn how to use this technology called imaging, which is where you can take pictures of your organism and you can actually convert the pixels that you can perform accurate measurements. So it was a variety of different new skills and abilities, but I would definitely say analytical skills, technological skills, observation skills, as well as patience.
Great. And Arushi, how about you? What were the things that you learned most from doing your project?
I think one of the main things I learned was to reach out to other people when I needed help. For example, while finding asteroid databases, I was not able to find them, and I struggled for many days before I reached out to an astronomy community, and they were able to give me resources which allowed me to do it. And one other thing I learned is problem solving, because I faced many different problems during my project and I had to find ways to solve them. And I often realized that normally my problems were really simple to solve, and I just needed to go back to the basic steps and review them.
That's great. You brought up a lot of really important skills, perseverance and time management and reaching out to other people. Really excellent advice and skills to develop through the course of doing a STEM project. I want you to reflect a little bit on the sort of difference between working on a STEM project and doing the regular schoolwork that you're asked to do at school, as you're going through your educational careers. Can you suggest ways maybe in which more aspects of doing a STEM project could be better integrated into what you're doing at school, or maybe it already is? So maybe you could just comment on how STEM projects for you have fit into what you're doing at school. So Audrey, maybe we'll start with you.
Sure. So the skills that I mentioned, including time management and perseverance, definitely I have used them and applied them to school. And then also so maybe I'll just focus on those two for the moment. So for time management, it's often really difficult to get things efficiently done, whether you're in a lab or at school. So that has always been an issue for me, but I managed to, using my STEM project, be able to figure out better strategies of being able to apply time management to both STEM projects and to school. And with perseverance, often in a lab, you run into issues. And with schoolwork too, you can run into issues or questions you don't know. So perseverance is really, really important in both settings, as well as time management.
So where, in terms of what you learn doing a STEM project compared to the kinds of things you're learning at school, are they the same, different? Which do you prefer, Audrey?
Personally, I think STEM projects can also give results that can be applied to everyday life. So while school can do that, I feel like STEM projects sometimes even make you come up with or be able to figure out how to use skills. And yeah.
Okay, good. And Max, how does working on the development of a drone and all the work that you've done, how does that compare with what you're doing at school, and how would you blend those together to maybe make education a little more effective for young people?
Yeah, sure. So when I was doing my STEM project, I had to learn a lot more like technical skills that weren't going to be taught at school. So things like mechanical engineering, CAD, electrical engineering, some programming, like machining, 3D printing, these weren't really going to be taught at school or through the curriculum. Like some things like machining, like I wouldn't expect a school to suddenly implement teaching kids like how to use a bandsaw, because that's, I think that would be a pretty big safety concern. But the hands-on learning that you get from doing these STEM projects is quite different from learning concepts at school, because you have much more like a flexible and unlimited possibility to do things. And at school, it's more of a structured and systematic approach. So I guess in STEM projects, like the self-exploring part and the self-learning part is really just, I think, more beneficial than like having to sit in a classroom and listen to a teacher talk about a concept.
And Jasmine, what do you think?
Yeah, so at my school, like a lot of the labs I had done previously were things like how does physical exertion affect your heart rate? And that's something that like is something that the results are kind of expected. Like we went into doing these labs kind of knowing what results we were going to get. And I think it's just like the joy and the fun of science fairs that you don't know what results you're going to get. You're finding things out for the first time. And I think that's what makes science like what it is, finding things out and problem solving and doing all these things. And you don't get that from labs that are designed to get a specific result, that are designed to only produce like a certain report. So I think definitely implementing more like self-implemented projects into the curriculum. We can still learn to like write reports, but maybe write reports about things we're interested in and learn how to problem solve in that process as well. So yeah, maybe like making a bit of the curriculum have a science project in it as well.
Coral and Hans, what do you think?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of the finalists say that, sorry, there's a dog right beside me. Heard a lot of the finalists say that the school curriculum is sometimes a bit boring and there isn't so much creativity involved. But I would say I don't think it's the teacher's job to make you more creative. I would say it's more of your job as you're listening. Everybody has that moment where they have a question that they're too afraid to ask the teacher, even though they think it's a really cool idea. They're afraid to raise their hand, right? But the moment you take that idea, you try to expand it, you go home, you look on YouTube, you try to research it a little more. That's how we got our science project started. And I think it's really the student's job to focus on the solid knowledge that school provides, and then try to like catch on to those really vital moments where you have that spark of innovation. And that's the moment for you to be creative. A teacher can't really give you creativity.
And Coral?
Yep, I also agree with that. And as Max mentioned earlier, it can be systematic. School is systematic. So you need to really catch on to those moments and expand upon your ideas.
And Annabelle, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. So one of the reasons I love science fair so much is it gives you the opportunity to be curious and be creative. You can go and ask questions and you get to perform an experiment. You get to set the variables. It's very much independent and self-motivated, so that you can say that there is a lot of less stress and less pressure, as it's really you're doing something for yourself because you want answers and you want to be able to better your community and your world, which is not exactly an opportunity you always get in class. Generally, the labs and things are preset. And as Jasmine mentioned, the answers are all predetermined, whereas and often you don't get much choice in school over which labs you do or which things you learn and don't learn. So it's the ability to go and learn about a topic or subject that you are very passionate about and potentially find a way to help other people and generally benefit the world while also channeling your own curiosity and creativity in whichever way you desire.
And Arushi, there's not a lot of astronomy and the kind of work that you were doing being taught in school. What are your thoughts on how what you did fits in with your schoolwork and maybe how school could better engage youth in doing these kinds of projects?
Sure. So I think there were some semblances between my project and what I was taught in school. For example, all the math in my project I had already learned at school. I tried to use only stuff that I learned at school. For example, just a simple mean, mode, and so on. But I think one problem with the school curriculum is that you can't really go beyond it. So what I would normally do for my science fair project is go beyond these topics, and I could basically learn whatever I wanted to. Though especially astronomy, I haven't covered at all in my school, really. So I had to learn this all on my own. So it would be great if in schools they could teach at least the basics of astronomy.
Okay, there's some good advice. So where do you go from here? You've now won the Canada-wide Science Fair, and what are your thoughts on where you go from here, where you take your project from here, what you might like to do going forward? We've got about 9 minutes left, so just give us a snapshot of where you think you might take your project or where you'd like to head off. So perhaps Jasmine will get you to start off.
Yeah, so now that I've done some work with biochars, I've actually found out that they're super interesting. They're a lot more interesting than I initially thought. Like I thought they would be cool, but I didn't realize they were this cool. They have so many different chemical properties and features that I haven't yet really explored. And so right now I was focusing on calcium and those reactions, like the chemical precipitation reactions between calcium and phosphate. But there are so many other cations that I could look into that I'm really interested in. Magnesium, maybe iron. I would like to try and modify my biocharts in different ways. And then I kind of set out with phosphate removal in mind, and I'm still interested in getting to that point of phosphate removal. But I actually observed that there was a lot of promise for copper removal and some other heavy metals. It was removing some of that as well. And that's a new kind of hemisphere that I've never looked into, those heavy metals, before, but I think it has a lot of promise as well, and I'd be interested to start learning about that too.
Well, sounds very promising. Max, what's the future for you and your drone?
Yeah, so I plan to file a patent about this drone and its validation of its current prototype. However, before I do that, I just want to start because right now my drone still has some flaws with it, and I want to improve that. I want to improve the arm gripper operations. I want to improve the live video surveillance system, and I want to switch my wireless communicator to something with a higher range, such as an XB. So I also plan to make an extension, a application extension to other high-risk patients, like diabetic patients who may experience diabetic comas, or high-risk allergy patients and angina patients.
That's great. Sounds very promising. Carell and Hans, what about you? And where are you going to take your project, and where do you want to head with it?
All right, so before doing anything, we plan on getting more data, because although 17,000 samples do seem like a good amount, you typically want a lot more for an extremely reliable machine learning project. So getting more data. And we're also thinking of expanding to different microarray chips and also different, different diseases. It doesn't just have to be 13 types of cancer. And Louis can talk about the, applications we're planning on doing with our project.
Definitely. So our project, we didn't reach out to any professors. We didn't have any lab work. It was mostly on the computer. We did our own research. So we're really hoping to over the summer communicate with some universities, maybe reach out to some of their labs, see if we can do some experiments there. And I'd like to really thank the fair for providing all the prize funds. That really allows us as finalists and young scientists to take our projects forward, try to make something more physical out of it, try to acquire the resources that we actually need to make our project take the next step.
That's great. Well, you've had lots of advice and lots of suggestions from this group, saying that it's you just have to take that step and reach out, and that the scientific community is very supportive and willing to help. So hopefully that works out for you guys, and that you can take this another step further. How about Annabelle? Where are you planning to head with this?
Absolutely. Well, one for sure goal of mine is to have my work and research published. And I would also like to expand and continue on my research, possibly either before the publication or after the publication. And I would like to look at how invasive species, specifically zebra mussels and the spiny water flea, play into Daphnia magna biomanipulation, as well as algae bloom treatment and prevention, or possibly reaching out or working with the university or the Experimental Lakes Association to actually formally field test my work.
All right, sounds great. And Arushi, where do you want to take your project?
Sure. So I have a lot of new things that I think I could do in my project. For example, finding more information about my possible asteroid candidates. So this will allow me to move my project further, because this is just the first step of my project. I plan on improving it a lot. But another thing I also want to do is a lot of outreach on my project to get other youth interested in science, technology, astronomy, or whatever else they want to do.
Great. And Audrey, how about you?
Yeah, so in terms of my projects, I would like to test how diet and environment can impact the microbes present in a dog's mouth and the levels of pathogenic and zoonotic microbes. And I would also like to sequence down to the species level for select colonies, as I only managed to sequence to the genus level. And in addition, I would sort of like to see my work exposed to the public a bit more, because people can't make informed decisions about whether or not to let their dog lick them without a full understanding of all the risks. And because this territory is relatively unexplored, I think my project would do a really good job of explaining to people why a single dog's lick can be dangerous.
Well, thanks very much. This has been great. It's been wonderful to talk with all of you. I want to congratulate you once again on your success at Canada-wide Science Fair 2022. You all deserve, all the accolades that came last night, and the medals and the awards and that sort of thing. It's been fascinating to hear about your projects and the ideas that you have for taking them forward. And I just want to remind anybody who's watching that these are students in grades 7 to 12 across Canada, and that they've done these projects over the last year and participated in the Canada-wide Science Fair, and we're just really proud of the work that you've done. So, any final words that you'd like to give to teachers, to other students, or to shout outs to anybody who helped with your project? Maybe Arushi, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I just want to say to all the youth out there, just start with whatever you're interested in. It could be anything. It could even be arts. Just start with whatever you're interested in and keep going further. Great.
Annabelle.
Absolutely. So I would encourage all youth and teachers or anyone who's interested in a science fair project or can encourage others to do it. Don't be afraid. I know it may seem scary at first, but you just go out there and try. Never, ever suppress your curiosity and creativity. Those are very, very powerful. And I would also like to thank all of my friends, family, and mentors for their support over the past year.
And Coral and Hans?
Follow your passions, and also shout out to 3 Blue, 1 Brown for making great videos on machine learning. Pretty good. And also special thanks to all of our teachers who helped with the project, our family members who were very supportive, and everyone who just in general helped us with our project. Thank you all so much.
I'd like to thank Mr. Bradshaw in grade 8.
There you go. Okay, and Jasmine.
Yeah, I think get started as soon as possible. Just go with what you're interested in, and don't put too much pressure on yourself. Don't take it too seriously. Just do it for the sake of doing science. And then I'd also like to shout out Sarah Fellon, who is the lab technician who taught me the safety and taught me how to pipette and do all those basic things. And I'm really grateful that she actually stayed late some days to monitor me in the lab and I'm very thankful for her involvement with this. So yeah, thank you. And yeah, go for it.
And Max?
Yeah, I would encourage other students and other young people to start like science fair projects, because it's really like using your passion and skills to better the community is really meaningful. I would also like to shout out all the doctors that helped me, like Dr. Michael Tamansky, who helped me with like all my questions about emergency medication and even helped me and explained his own invention. So I'd like to shout out to everyone else who helped me with my project.
And Audrey?
I would just like to deeply thank all of my friends, family, peers, teachers, and mentors that supported me on this unbelievable journey. And I would also like to give a special shout out to my mentor, Jesse McAlpine.
Well, that's it for Meet the Winners 2022. You've been speaking with the Platinum and Best Project winners from Canada-wide Science Fair 22, and thanks again. It's been wonderful to speak with you and for having you share all your ideas and thoughts with everyone from across the country. So thanks so much.